Hello everyone, this is Sajal Debnath, and today I'm going to talk about vRealize Operations Manager, alert, notifications, and the REST APIs. Specifically, how to use alert and notifications together, and exploring vROps REST API to gather information from a vRealize Operations Manager. So, before I go ahead and discuss the different aspects of alerting notifications and the REST APIs, the first question is what is provided out of the box? Now, out of the box, vRealize Operations Manager provides an in-depth visibility into your entire data center. For example, if you look into this SDDC Health Overview dashboards, it shows you information about not only about vROPS but also NSX, VRLI, vCenter, and I can have information about VRLI's automations, vSAN, and whatnot. Right? So it provides me a lot of information, but that is available only into the vROPS console. I log into VRLI's Operations Manager and I get to see all that stuff, right? And it provides you out of the box alerting mechanisms as well. So I get to see a lot of alert, which is intelligent alert, when I log into Operations Manager console. Now the question is, the alerts that it shows, it's out of the box, but every environment is different. So the alerts that I want to see, probably they are not out of the box, right? So what to do in that case? The question is, what is exactly that is required? Now, how to create custom alarms, right? So I understand that there are a lot of a lot of alerts available out of the box. But what if I want to monitor a particular application for which I want to build one alert or custom alert for myself, that I would get a notification from that, right? Now, how to create and get notifications for those alerts? I have created an alert, but how do I get notification on that? Where do I get the notification for that? Right? The next question that typically we have, that I want to take automated actions based on those notifications. How can I achieve that? I want that whenever that notification comes, that some work needs to be done or carried away. Uh, uh, whether I am active or not, it should be automated. How do I achieve that? And next thing is, how can I collect metric information directly from vROPS? I know vROPS shows me a lot of information, like for example your CPU, memory, disk, network, you name it, and you have metrics for that. But that is again available to me in the vROPS dashboard. What if I want to collect those information directly using a separate mechanism and show it somewhere else, or do something else on that? How do I do that? So what are the other things that I can do with vROPS REST API, and how I can utilize those REST APIs? So I'm going to answer all those questions and show a demo that exactly how we can do this stuff, right? Now, if we look into the requirement analysis, the questions that we asked till now, if we analyze that, I see that there are two aspects of the requirement. One thing is information gathering. How do I gather the information? And the other thing is how I share the information. For example, how do I get the notification for the information that I have already gathered? The first thing is deciding what exactly I want to be informed about. Right. For example, I have a custom application, and whenever that application behaves badly, or it's not acting properly, there's some performance issues. I want a notification for that. That is the information that I want to gather from vROPS. So I'm pretty sure that what I want. Now, I know that what I want, but how do I get that is the information sharing. How I share the information from vRealize Operations Manager. So these are the two different aspects of the requirement as a whole. So we're going to cover that these two requirements in detail. Right, the first thing is information sharing. How I can share the information, because I wanted to cover the sharing portion first, because we have out of the box lot of information available to us. So whether I'm building a custom information, or I'm gathering the inbuilt information that's already there in vROPS, how do I share that? So there are three ways I can do that. using REST API plugins or the notifications. Typically these comes under the notification, REST API notification. I have by default plugins. I can send a notification using the REST API, or I can directly query vROps to gather that information, same information, using the REST APIs. The next thing is send an email. I can get an email in my inbox that whenever some alert is fired, I will get an email, and that email can come to me in my laptop, desktop, or mobile based on the configuration that I have. That something has happened in your environment, so you will get an email. And the third thing is SNMP traps. You can use vROPs as a SNMP source, that it would send the SNMP traps, and you can use another SNMP server as a sink. So like for example, I can have a vRO, vRelease orchestrator, as an SNMP sink, and I can send the SNMP traps from vROPs. I can send the REST API notifications from vROPs as well to vRO, but it's not directly straightforward. There is something, some mediator that is required in between. So say for example, what I want, that some alert that is getting fired from vROPs, I want to get a notification directly to vRealize orchestrator, and I want to run certain workflow based on that notification. So probably I can use the SNMP trap or the REST API. So that's how I would share the information from vRealize operations manager. Now, this particular session, I'm going to cover more on the REST API notification. I'm going to talk about REST API notifications because SNMP is pretty easy and straightforward. We have already covered. I have already covered that under the auto scaling video, that I had done a couple of months back. So you can go ahead and watch that to see how a SNMP notification can be done, and SNMP traps can be sent from vROPs to fire a workflow in VRO. So REST APIs, say what I need to do, VRO sends REST, which is vROP's proprietary payload, and the destination API proprietary payload. Now, the endpoints can be anything like Bugzilla, ServiceNow, Zendesk, PagerDuty, VRO, Jenkins, Slack, channel. But the thing is, how do I convert the vROPS proprietary payload into a different payload which the endpoints will understand? So for that, what we do, we use webhook shims. So we configure webhook shims for vROPS. What it does, that the REST API notification is sent from vROPS to webhook shim. The webhook shim actually transforms the proprietary payload into the destination API proprietary payload, so that it can understand, right? The more understand the information that is being shared from a vRealize operations manager. So that's something that you need to configure if you want to use REST API notification. And then once the notification is set, you can define alert for the required information, and then obviously define notification using REST API plugin. That's the entire flow using REST API notifications for vROPS. The next question that you have is getting the correct information, right? So I have mentioned that out of the box vROPS provides a lot of information, but if you want to directly query vRealize operations manager and gather the metrics, because I got this request couple of times from few of my customers saying that they wanted to gather the metrics themselves, like for example CPU utilization, disk utilization, memory utilization, and make the decisions by themselves to right size the entire environment. So I got this request from a couple of my customers, and the question is, doing that is very easy. You just simply go ahead and use the REST APIs, and you can use the end tool as per your requirement. You can use Java client, you can use Power CLI, or the Python client to get the information. But the question is, do you really need to do that? Because vROPS out of the box provides a lot of intelligence, or intelligence decisions that are being taken by vROPS. So you can simply use those out of the box. So what you want to do, there's no point reinventing the wheel. So we need to think correctly and first check into vROPS that whether it provides you those information already is there. If it's already there, you can simply consume that information. Otherwise, then you can think of gathering the information manually through REST APIs, writing your own scripts program to get that information and use it accordingly. So that is one aspect of it. Now, when I talk about Restify notification and webhook shim, there are a couple of blogs that has been written with the details. Just exactly 5 blogs that is written in blogs.vma.com, which gives you step-by-step guidance how to configure webhook shims for vROps, and then you have the UI URL where you go ahead and get the VMware defined webhook shims. You can go ahead and download it and follow the process to configure it in your environment, right? So we will go ahead and watch those blogs. We will visit those blogs again, but before that, let's go ahead and see how it's done in actual environment, right? So I have this various operations manager environment. Let me log in there. So the first thing that we will do is create a notification, right? So go ahead and check this documentation, the webhook shims. Let's go ahead and check that. Just visit this websites for the information that you want to have. So the first thing is webhooks. vRealize plus webhooks equals to infinite integrations. It details what are webhooks and how we can configure it for vRealize inside. The same thing is applicable for vROps as well. It details what are the endpoints that is supported. But note this series of blogs by John Diaz, which details the self-healing data center using webhooks to automate remediation. Remediation approaches. So it actually gives you step-by-step guidance how you can actually configure the orchestrator webhooks. Using various orchestrator and various operations manager and integrated these two using webhook shim. So follow these guidelines to configure it in your environment. I have one webhook configured in already in my environment, so I will not configure cover the webhook configuration that aspect. I will just simply look at the various operations manager where and how I can utilize that configuration all, right? So the first thing that I need to do is I go to administration. I'm setting up my outbound setting, that how the information will flow out from my vRealize operations manager. So here I have orchestrator shim notification already defined for me. What it does, it's just I select a REST notification plugin. So for example, if I select a new say outbound instance, I need to create an outbound instance. So I create a plugin type, select a plugin type. For here for our use case, we'll select REST notification plugin, give it the instance a name, the URL, and then content type, whether it's application JSON type information you want to send, or XML type information, and then connection count. So I have this orchestrated shim notification configured in my environment. The URL, notice the URL, right? You don't need to give any username password, just keep it blank, but the URL is, this is the IP of my webhook server where my webhook environment is running, and endpoint is vRO. So vRealize orchestrator, using webhook, I can plug into say ServiceNow, Bugzilla, or Slack, or Remedy, or something else. But here I'm using vRO as an endpoint, and this particular number, just note that this particular number is coming from a workflow that I want to trigger when this notification will be triggered. So you notice this ID, this workflow ID, UID in vRealize orchestrator. So I have this workflow defined. So this workflow ID is used in the URL. So whenever this outbound instance is being used for a notification, it's actually going there in VRO and going to fire this particular workflow. So why we prefer using REST API for notification? Because when I use SNMP trap, it's like each and every SNMP trap, each and every alert that is coming from vROps, it would send an SNMP trap to VRO. It's like blindly it would forward everything. There is no way you can actually pick and choose the alerts. So whatever alert notification is that is being utilized for SNMP traps, it is going to send the notification. The way you process that send it SNMP information or the trap in VRO is you monitor the SNMP traps and search for particular parameters. When you get certain parameters, say for example a particular alert name, when your search criteria matches that SNMP information that has been fired from vROps into VRO that matches that alert name, you do some work. So you constantly look out for SNMP traps and an information that is being available, which is not very efficient way. But in REST API, what I'm doing, I'm configuring an outbound instance, and doing this, I can create multiple outbound instance using the same webhook and VRO as an endpoint. All I need to do is just use different UID for different workflows. So I know when I am using this outbound instance, that particular workflow with this UID in VRO, this received vROps alert details, this particular workflow is going to be fired. We will check that, but this is one advantage of utilizing REST API notification, and this probably why you should use it in your production environment, right? So the first thing that you will configure is outbound setting. I would configure outbound instance. Next thing that I need to do is I will configure alert. So go to content. Now configuring alert is the second step. The first step is defining the symptoms. What are the symptoms? Like for example, whatever endpoint that I choose, that whatever entity or resource type, say for example I want to select a virtual machine, and for that particular virtual machine, say if the CPU utilization goes beyond 80% or say 75%, I want to uh, and I want an alert to be sent for that. So first I need to define that symptom, that okay, if that symptom is being met, the criteria is being met, then set an alert, right? So the first thing that I will do is define a symptom. So now there are a lot of out of the box symptoms. You can see that in each page uh, there are 17 such pages, and there are a lot of information that is available. Say it shows me 850, there are 850 different symptoms that is already defined. Now when you go into the symptoms, there are four different categories in which the symptoms are classified. The first thing is metric or property symptom definition. So for any particular resource, I'm selecting any metric and or a property, and for that property I'm defining a symptom. Like for example, you look into say CPU related symptoms. I see that okay, virtual machine CPU core stop is at critical level. I know there is a metric for CPU core stop. I'm utilizing that for a definition, for a symptom definition. Now, if I go into message event symptom definition, this is typically the events that happens. Like analytics failed to send an alert notification, or attempt to add bridge left failed, or compliance event. These are event based symptoms. These are not metric based symptoms. Then we have fault based symptoms. Something happened, like a fatal memory error occurred, fatal CPU apologies, it's like PCIe error occurred, right? So duplicate IP address was found on the network. This is a fault that has happened. There is a particular fault that has happened. This is a fault based symptom definitions, right? And then you have metric event symptom definition, an event that is happening at the metric level, like for example hard threshold above event that has happened, right? So for our use case, what I have chosen, I have one machine, virtual machines, an application is running on that. I have an EPOps agent inside, deployed inside that agent, deploy inside that machine, virtual machine. So it's like Linux machine, and I'm just monitoring for a service. The service is VRA agent. I have installed VRA agent into that virtual machine. So whenever that VRA agent is stopped, it is going to send me an alert. So that is one extreme use case, like what you can do with the applications. Like you have a Java application, you have an Apache Tomcat server running. If a particular service is stopped, you are monitoring a particular service, you just install an EPOps agent inside that virtual machine and monitor for that particular service. So here in my case, what I'm looking for is something, but I have created one symptom which is metric based. It's a VRM agent not running. Now look at that. The base object type that I'm selecting, I can select many things. I can select say VLA's automation management pack, or EPOps adapter, or I can select vCenter adapter. I can select, say for example, I want to get a notification, as I was saying, that CPU goes beyond 80% for any virtual machine. So I can simply select a virtual machine, and on the drop down I would select all the matrices that is available for me. Since I'm monitoring EPOps adapter, and I want to monitor a process, so I'm just selecting multi-process, and then based for that metrics, I'm selecting availability and then resource availability. This is the process that I'm monitoring, right? So if I select the base objects type as CPU, I can simply go ahead and select that. I give it a name, give the symptom a name, and I define whether it's critical or info, or it's just informative or warning, or immediate action needs to be taken. So I said critical when metric is not equals to 1, right? So if metric equals to 1, that means the agent is running. So if it's not equals to 1, so it's 0, that agent is not running. I just simply want to get an alert for that. I'm defining symptom here, and now for my environment, I've just defined the wait cycle is 1. So 1 is my wait cycle, and the cancel cycle. One cycle is 5 minutes. vROps gathers the information for 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, so I'm just waiting that once the notification is fired, the symptom is seen, I will wait for one cycle, and then after one cycle I will cancel it, right? So that's how I define a VRM agent. Now if I, as I was saying, if I look into CPU, I had something called CPU, let's see, test CPU, test CPU alert. So my base object type is virtual machine, and then for this I'm selecting CPU, and under that recommended number of vCPUs to remove. What I want, that if the recommended number of vCPUs to remove matrix is greater than 1, send me a notification. That means that particular virtual machine is underutilized. Now, why I wanted to showcase this, because when you collect the information, most of the times I get the request that I want to monitor the virtual machines myself. But look at the parameters that I have here, like recommended number of vCPUs to add, recommended number of vCPUs to remove. So vRealize Operations Manager by default out of the box gives you these metrics, which actually gives you these suggestions, and it considers last 30 days information. So 30 days utilization, it considers peak and average as well. So the peak values and the average values are already considered. Now think about that. If you really need to collect the CPU usage of a virtual machine, or say you collect it every 5 minutes or so, and then based on the historical utilization you are making, you will have to make the decisions by yourself, the kind of work that you need to do, which is, but in this case vROPS already provides that information out of the box. See, reclaimable capacity of virtual vCPUs, right? So that kind of information is already there. You just go ahead and explore the matrices that you can actually, that's available. You go ahead and check that. And first, if you need certain information, first go ahead and check under the details page, and then you go ahead and try to do something by your own. What's the point of reinventing the wheel, right? vROPS is there to make your life easier. So I always say go ahead and check those. Right? I'll probably showcase the available matrices a little bit in a later stage, but right now we have defined the symptoms. Now we are going to define an alert, right? So to define an alert, what I need to do, I just need to give it a name, test, select the base object type. Say for example, I wanted to set that alert, the symptoms that I have defined. Now I have to tag it with the end resources. I have just defined the symptom. I have not tagged it per se, right? So I say virtual machine is my base object. Alert impact. What is the impact? Whether it's the impact is health, risk, or efficiency. So my CPU utilization beyond 80% is my health alert, but the test CPU, what I was seeing, that recoverable vCPUs is my efficiency, how efficiently my virtual machine is running. So I will select efficiency, and then criticality, how critical. So it's symptom based, or it's simply critical, or immediate warning info, or that kind of stuff. So we will select symptom based, and alert type and subtype, whether it's virtualization hypervisor or application related or hardware related or the storage network related, we can select that. If I select virtual machine, so I would select virtualization slash hypervisor, and I would select performance, how it's performing, or capacity. So since I want to say select the test CPU, where I want to see how much CPU I can reclaim, I can simply select capacity. Now wait cycle and cancel cycle, that I uh, how many cycles I want to wait, and then symptom definition. Now where it is defined on self, I want to gather or fire an alert for a virtual machine when a particular symptom is seen, like CPU utilization is beyond 80% or a certain number of CPUs are recoverable. So my base object is a virtual machine. So it's defined on the self itself, right? And then see symptom definition type, as we have already seen that metric property, we define something in metric property, and then I search for that particular symptom, say test CPU alert. I select that this is the thing, this is the symptom that I want to monitor, and then you can add your custom recommendations as well, right? It's not mandatory, you can add your own custom recommendation. You can add multiple symptoms as well, right? So one VCP recommended for a virtual machine. You can add multiple symptoms to define your own alert. So for our utilization, what I have done, I have created one alert which is VRM agent not running in Linux case. So this is the name that I have given to the alert. Base object type is again multi-process because I am utilizing EPOPS agent. It has multi-process as an entity. You look at the things that I can monitor under EPOPS. I'm utilizing multi-process because I want to monitor a process, a service inside a Windows machine or Linux machine. So I have selected base object type is multi-process. The alert impact is risk, symptom based, and then virtualization hypervisor compliance. I can select that, or application level compliance as well. I can select it as application level because I'm monitoring an application. There's my alert type. Again, wait cycle and then cancel cycle. Add symptom definition. Here I just simply selected VRM agent not running. Remember the symptom that we just defined, So VRM agent not running is my symptom. So I'm selecting that. It's defined on self and multi-process, and then there's no recommendations that I have for this. So that was my entire alert define how you can define an alert. So first you need to define the symptom, or you can utilize an already defined symptom and define an alert, and then you need to define the notification, create a notification. So when you create a notification, you give it a name. This is my test notification, the method that you are going to follow. So REST notification, standard email plugin, or SNMP trap plugin I can use. Log file plugin is like you want to send something to the login set manager or some logging mechanism. So I'm utilizing REST notification plugin, and then I need to select the instance. Remember the instances that we created earlier, outbound notification, outbound instance that we created, that is coming here, or I can define my own instance again. I can create it from here as well. So I will select that, and then filtering criterion that I will have to configure. That what is the scope? What is the scope? Is the scope an object of an object type or an object itself? So if I select an object type, then I will have to select what is the object type that I want to monitor, right? If I select object, then I will have to select a particular object itself. You search by say a virtual machine, and okay. Uh, so I have these virtual machines. I can select a dedicated, select an object, and then include descendants. I can directly select an object for that. I can select tags, a particular tag that I have created. I can select applications, right? And I can select different tiers as well. Then I need to define that application trigger that I have. Here I would select that alert definition, the alert that I have created, and then select that definition that I had created, say VRM agent not running in Linux guest. So I select that alert, that notification trigger. Whenever that alert is fired, this notification will be sent, right? And then criticality, whether it's info critical, immediate, or critical. What is the criticality of that? Uh, Based on which it would send an alert. Now that alert states whether it's open, assigned, or suspended. These are advanced filter or alert status. So cancelled, updated, new. So probably we would like to get a notification whenever a new alert that comes. Obviously, you don't want to get notification for cancelled or updated, but if you want in your environment that if certain alerts gets updated, then you get a notification for that as well. You can select for that as well, and then you can select the collectors. Now, notice this. See, if I have multiple collectors, or I have remote collectors, or a collector group defined for a report collector, I can define an alert which is, or a notification which will be sent to me. A notification will be sent to me when an alert comes, particularly from a particular collector. So I have say three different collectors, remote collectors, configured in my environment. So if collector A has this alert, then only I will get this notification. So I can define or fine tune where I want to get that notification from as well. It's not like that in my entire environment I have say 5,000 virtual machines. Wherever that notification comes or that alert comes, it will send me a notification. No. So if I have defined multiple collectors, based on the collectors, I can select the notification as well, right? So my notification that I have configured here is VRM agent notification. I'm utilizing REST notification plugin, uh, orchestrator shim notification, and here the scope I'm selecting is a particular object. I'm not monitoring that entire environment. I'm just monitoring VRM agent. That's my object, that is under my scope. Notification trigger is I have defined that VRM agent not running in Linux case, that notification, and then alert states are open or new. That is when the notification will be sent to me. right? So now I have configured that entire environment that if that alert comes, it would send me a notification to VRO. I have configured my webhook, and VRO is configured that this particular task should be run, right? Now let's go back and select in my environment where that particular entities. So under operating system, I see that I have Linux, and then I have this particular entity. This is a virtual machine. EPOPS agent is running, and I have defined a VRM agent there, which is actually monitoring the VRM service there. But before I go ahead and showcase that, I wanted to showcase something else as well. This is a this is an instance on an operating system. You select all the metrics that is available. You get to see the operating system version, right? You get to see that operating system version is this. What's the platform type that's there? Linux. The primary DNS that is configured, the IP address of the virtual machine that is configured. So you have whole lot of information that is collected from your environment. If I want to select a particular virtual machine, as I was saying, that what is available to you, go ahead and explore these values, right? So if I want to see my production environment, it's running this particular virtual machine, app 02, go to all metrics, explore the parameters that's available to you. Go ahead and check the all metrics. It shows you the badge, the configuration, hardware configuration, your CPU, what's the demand percentage, whole lot of information that is available to you. Recommended number of CPUs to remove for that matter. I see that it's zero right now. There is no recommendation for me. CPU utilization for resources. So go ahead and explore these parameters that is available to you out of the box, and then after that, if you see that something is not provided from vROPS, then only go ahead and collect your own data using REST APIs, and then do your own calculation or whatever information that you want. So alert, apart from that, it shows you a lot of other information. Say for example, if I go ahead and select details, it shows me the details for that particular virtual machine, that what are the alerts that is available to me, and other information that's there. You go to analysis tab, it shows you the workload for that particular virtual machine. You can do further analysis on that machine. You can see how many anomalies, fault that is happening on that virtual machine. For the virtual machine, what is the capacity remaining? Like I can see 31% capacity remaining, and then for each buffers, it's considering how much person, what's the usable capacity, and all that kind of information. It is absolutely amazing tool. You go to reclaimable capacity, it shows you that whatever resource that you can reclaim for that virtual machine, right? So do go ahead and explore what is available to you, and you'll be amazed what is available to you. Coming back to our current topic, if we go to Linux and then VRM agent, uh, let's see what are the alerts that's there. So I see that's already these alerts are there, but since these are already open alerts, it's not sending me a notification, right? It's not running anything. So I go back, let me clear these alerts. I cancel these two alerts, and I know that VRM agent is not running inside the virtual machine. I have stopped it purposefully. So I should wait for certain cycles, and for the data to be collected, that alert to be fired, and then we would see how it actually fires a task in VRO. So I need to wait for one cycle till the alert comes. Meanwhile, we can go ahead and webhook. I have already shown that what are the blogs that's available with detailed configurations. This is what VMware has provided. a login set is applicable for login set, but you can utilize it with the various operations manager as well. Webhook shims, it has samples, it has tests, it is detailed, like how you would go ahead and install it in your environment, in Docker environment, Photon OS, manually how would you install and configure it. So do go ahead and check this GitHub page, github.com vmw hyphen log insight slash webhook hyphen shims, and configure it using this blog configurations that you have. So let's see whether notification has been fired. I see that VRM agent not running in Linux guest has been fired. So let's see whether it actually fired any task. Yes, this particular workflow has successfully run. So all I'm doing here, I'm just getting the alert from ID and printing out the information that I have got. I just wanted to show that yes, this workflow is done. So I can replace this workflow with anything and that particular workflow will run. And notice the kind of information that you are getting. So you get the alert ID, that particular alert UID, the resource ID on which this was fired. So you get the resource ID, alert level, type, update time, and then alert definition name. See, VRM agent not running in Linux. That is the alert definition that was done, and then what UI, what REST URL was utilized, and stuff. That kind of information it is given. It provides you all that information. So whenever similarly I configure any symptoms on any object, I configure an alert and I'll send a notification. This particularly runs a task or workflow in VRO. In place of VRO, I can utilize any other endpoints, like for example Bugzilla. So I want a Bugzilla ticket to be open for me, ServiceNow ticket to be open for me. I want to do something else. So that possibilities I leave it up to you how you want to configure it. But this is how you would configure and utilize alerts, notification, and use REST API notification plugin to do something utilizing vROps and vRO. Right? I hope that was clear till now. The next topic that I wanted to cover is that is fine. vRealize Operations Manager is absolutely amazing. It gives you something out of the box. But if you want to explore it yourself, you want to explore the REST APIs, you want to do something by your own. How do you do that? Simply go ahead, go to https colon front slash your vROps server slash forward slash suite hyphen API. That's where all the suite AP REST API information is provided. That REST API documentation is provided. So by default, it provides Java client and Python client. Just Python client, you can click on this, download the Python language bindings package, and then just install the package using Python setup.py install, and you are ready to go. Right? The detailed documentation, you click on this link, it opens detailed documentation. You have all the REST API defined here. So for example, I want to get the statistics. So get latest stats. It shows you what you need to do. API, resources, ID, stats, latest. Right? This is the URI that you need to use, and it shows you the examples as well. Example XML format and JSON format. This is the example that you will get the stats in. And when you do the request, what are the parameters that you can pass? So maximum samples, resource ID, stat key, and the ID, template ID. So this is the when you send the request, you need to send these information so that it will send you these give you the latest stats for any resource, and simply go ahead and explore the parameters that's there. Explore the REST APIs. Like for example, if you want to get all actions, you need to simply do a get on API action definitions or API action definitions, and you will get the all actions. The example reply is shown here. This is the exam sample response that you need, and you can the parameters that you want to pass is page size. Now typically most of the times you would collect the stats, and when you go ahead and talk about stats, say get latest stats, you see that stat key. How do you get that stat key? So simply go to say we realize operations, so manager documentation. Go to documentation information, and go to information center, and then search for say stat key, or say uh, these are the risk symptom based. If you go to content and then metric definitions, metrics for using the server components, you go to vSphere metrics, and you select to get all the metrics that's defined in your environment. So you can query this as per these metrics, right? So for these are vSphere metrics. So for example, if I want to get something for virtual machine metrics, CPU IO weight or CPU effective limit, you go ahead and explore the metrics that's defined there in say CPU demand megahertz, right? And you get those information. So now if I go ahead and say check into Postman, I'm just utilizing Postman as a REST client here. So the first query that I'm doing is I'm utilizing API resources, right? So if you go ahead and search into your documentation, API documentation, say for example API resources, so you can select API resource and then particular ID, and for a particular resource you can get the stats and things. I'm just getting all the resource list, and then uh, if I remove this particular parameter, what I will get a list of all the resources that I have in my environment. Everything it returns with this query that I'm saying resource kind key is virtual machine. So I will get the reply only for the virtual machines that I have in my environment. It will show the information. Then basic authentication. I'm using the basic authentication. You can use the tickets as well. uh, these are my headers. There's no body. I'm just simply sending a request. I'm doing a get. Now this is what I get. If I query on resources, I get a list of all the resources. I just go ahead and filter the output, and now say for any particular resource with this ID, I want to see the stats and the latest stats. If I do a query, I get this information, right? I get to see all the statistics for all the statistics key, because I did not provide any key parameter. So it shows me all that information for that particular resource. And then I can further query that stat key equals the CPU usage megahertz and CPU demand megahertz. I only want to see these um, uh, two particular information, two particular statistics information. So I get to see that okay, this is a timestamp, and then CPU megahertz, demand megahertz was this, right? So this is the information. This is how you would go ahead and query. You need to explore, uh, you know, uh, the API documentation. You see whatever you can do, whatever the REST API methods that is available for you, you go ahead and explore that, say get supermetric or update supermetric. You can create supermetric using REST APIs, and that is public APIs. Then you have internal APIs. Internal APIs defined here as well, and then you can download the schema as well, and the model representations. What's the representation? So you have all the details regarding REST API. Now, I said that there was, if you go there and there is Python client, so I can use Power CLI to directly query the REST APIs, or I can use this Python client. So I have downloaded it and installed it. The Python client is named Nagini. So if you open this methods.json file, it's under the folder. You go to Nagini folder and methods.json file. If you open it, you get to see all the methods that's defined in your environment, right? For that, so like for example, get all actions, that's a method that has been defined here. The URI is API action definitions. So the way you would actually traverse the things is like you go ahead and check, say get latest stats. I want to again see the stats. uh, get latest stats. I know that API resources stats and latest. Now I want to find what is the equivalent method here. So I have this get latest stats of resources that's available for me. So what I need to go and I need to do is I will go ahead and I need to actually uh, this runs absolutely fine in Python 2.7. I have tried and tested in 2.7 environment. So I will go ahead and import Nagini, import the module in my environment. Once I import it, then uh, I need to define somehow this shell is running really slow. IDLX I am utilizing, and this is running really slow for me. Okay, so I import the plugin. uh, uh, no, Nagini, import Nagini is the plugin. Say I import the plugin, and then what I do is I get a pointer to that. I need to open a connection. Say I open a connection using Nagini.Nagini. Nagini is another submethod inside the Nagini module. So you provide the host equals the server name, user password into UID password format. So I am utilizing these variables. I have already defined these variables in my environment. I can simply query that using vROps. And now, if you say help Nagini, if you want to get details of Nagini, you say help Nagini, or help Nagini dot Nagini. you you select, get the details about Nagini uh, module, what's there. You can skim through it, you can go through it and find out. If you select dir vROps, you select, these are all the methods. I get to see a lot of methods that's defined under vROps. So whatever methods that's defined in this methods.json, it's available to you in command line as well. So I have opened a connection to my, actually it's a pointer to my vROps server. Now if I want to do a query, see for example I want to get all values for a particular resource ID. See for example the resource ID that I want to select the name, let me just show it to you. So name as a particular UID of a particular resource. Now I want to get that resource ID name, the stat key, the maximum samples and sample number. The stat key is I want to monitor particular Okay, so that was stat key. Okay, statkey. My bad. It's key. So I have all these key that is defined for me. I want to monitor my parameters or matrix values for guest file system capacity total, CPU capacity provision. You can click, add more such keys, just a string, array of string. So now I want to get latest stats, so I can search by that method how I want to get that stats. I want to go into this module. I see that get latest stats, and it's actually querying utilizing this URI API resources ID stats latest. The get method it runs, and query parameters. What are the query parameters I may pass to it? The maximum samples, the name of the parameter is maximum sample, and you define the maximum number of samples that you want. By default it's one, and you can say if you want to get historical data, so you would say 5 samples or something. And then type is integer. Then resource ID, you can provide an array of resource IDs to fetch for the latest stats for, so I think you can query a multiple resource. And then stat key, you provide a array of stat keys. And then template parameters, you need to provide the ID, right? So I have provided all that information that is available to me in all values. What I'm doing print, and then all values. It shows me that I'm getting the information in JSON format. It shows me the stat key for that CPU number of to add, and then timestamp that there is no number of CPUs to add for this. Say guest file system capacity total is 24 GB, nearly 25 GB, that kind of information. Now notice the maximum sample number that I have used was 1. What if I want to get the sample number as last 5 samples? I got my information. Let's do a pretty printing, and I see the last 5 sample values for these. The values, my environment is not that active, so the values do not change that much. But the timestamps, you notice the timestamps, it changes. So the value that you are getting. So likewise, you will get the information in JSON format. You typically get to see that this is a JSON format information that you are getting, and you can put the information on query using the JSON format as well. This is how you will go ahead and utilize the REST APIs to directly query or do something on vRealize Operations Manager. Go ahead, check the REST API documentation, the details with examples provided here. You just select whatever you want to do. So like create recommendation, select what it says, say API recommendations. If you want to do it programmatically, come back here in methods.json for Nagini. If you want to do it through Python, find that API recommendations, and I see that for that I have this method create recommendation. So I will go back in Python, and instead of get latest stats, I would simply use that particular method. And then I need to obviously check that what that method asks for. So name, update recommendation, and then the query parameters, the template parameters, and what are the things that you can do on that get recommendations. Like for example, you need to provide the ID, the type is string, uh, things like the how you would build your query, and the information that you will get from that. This is how you would explore the REST APIs of various operations manager, utilize it in your environment, do it programmatically in Python. So that's how we would do it, and that's all that I had for this session. I have written a particular Python script, a small Python script to which actually takes uh, inputs from you, that what are the keys that you want to monitor, and then it gives you the it keeps monitoring those information for you. But I will detail that into a separate blog post altogether. So thank you for listening to me. That is all that information that I had for today. Keep listening, keep tuning into, and my YouTube channel, and keep visiting in vtechguru.com. This is where I post my information from my blogs and check my YouTube channel as well. Okay. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for your patience and time. And do give me feedbacks.